All right, so the Italian Grand Prix was ridiculously awesome. The start was a little bit nuts. Vettel seemed to have a pretty good start, as did Hamilton. The best starter was Fernando Alonso. He started fourth and was able to go around the outside of Lewis Hamilton and actually get into the lead. Um, Down the front straight, they were actually three wide, and Alonso actually got pushed momentarily onto the grass, but ended up making it stick. What kind of tore the start apart was Liuzzi. He was had been kind of trying to work his way up from, I think he was last on the grid. Let's see, I pulled it up. Yeah, he was last on the grid, and he was trying to work his way around the outside, and didn't really work. He got onto the grass, he swerved back onto the track, and then I guess he, tried correcting and ended up going off the track into the grass. Got into a sideways spin and basically just shlew right down into the first chicane and ended up taking out a few other cars. Who else did he take out? Yeah, it was Rosberg and Petrov. Barrichello was temporarily trapped because Barrichello, Petrov was on his inside, I believe, with D'Ambrosio on his outside, and it was kind of like a triangle, and Barrichello just kind of drove right in there. He was kind of captured for a little bit until they could move another car, and then he got on his way. Mark Webber ended up, during kind of the restart, he went around, or he was trying to go around the outside of Massa into that same spot, the first chicane, and ended up, it's a right turn and then a left turn, and after they turned right, he was still side by side with Massa, but he started to brake a little bit. So Massa, I guess, thought that Webber had completely, hit the brakes and fallen behind him. So Massa ended up taking the normal line, which is hugging the curb, and Mark hit him, and it took off Mark's front wing. It spun Massa around, and then Mark ended up crashing towards the end of the lap. He went to go brake into Parabolica, and his wing had gone onto the front of his car, and he had no downforce, and he tried to hit the brakes, and he just went straight off. So not a good race for Webber at all, and not a good race for either the Saubers. They both dropped out about 20 to 30 laps into the race with gearbox failures. So not a great day for Perez and Kobayashi. But there were some other good points to be had. Alonso, like I said, he got his good pass on lap one, and then Vettel got him back. And then after that, Vettel was just gone. The whole rest of the race was just Vettel wheeling quick lap after quick lap, and was never really bothered after that. Lewis and Jensen got stuck up behind Schumacher, and Schumacher was being naughty, and he should have gotten a penalty. It should have been a drive-through penalty. He was moving twice a lot. In Formula One, you're allowed to move once to block, but you're not allowed to move twice. And the goal is to minimize accidents from drivers, moving twice and running into each other. So that's the rule. You're not allowed to move twice. And he was doing it a lot. And he got on the radio and was yelling, Hamilton was, about how Michael was all over the racetrack. Ross Brawn, the team principal for Mercedes GP, got on and told Michael, now remember, Michael, you need to leave space going into Ascari, which is one of the more high-speed chicanes. And he did that twice. And so really what it was a veiled message saying, cut it out. You're breaking the rules. You're moving twice. You're being, a bad boy. But there was never even an investigation. There was never a penalty handled out, and I think that hurt Jensen and Lewis's chances because what happened was Lewis was just fighting behind Michael over and over. And the problem is that they geared Lewis's car so short that he had great acceleration, but Monza's high speed, and he was hitting the rev limiter almost every lap down the pit front straight. So they geared his car wrong, and he just couldn't get the move done. And it ended up that while they were scrapping, Lewis got pushed wide onto the dirt, had to lift out of the throttle, and Jensen got by. And Jensen ended up passing Schumacher quickly thereafter. And Lewis finally got by Schumacher. It was after a few dozen laps. So that kind of ruined his race. And Alonso ended up staying pretty quick. Jensen got the jump on Alonso, and Jensen ended up second. And like I said a couple weeks ago, I think that at this point the championship is over. Both of them probably. Although if Mark Webber starts having DNFs, there may be some chance the manufacturer goes away. But I think they're both completely, both championships are in the bag at this point. Vettel, I think 125, basically with, I think, 6 races left, what we get down to is how many points are available. And he's like 112 ahead. So as we keep going on race after race, if we get to the 4th race, 4 races from the end, and he still has the margin, he's won, because literally he could not race the last 4 races and still be the championship winner, because he's just been that dominant. And Red Bull's pulled off a real feat this year. They found a car that is quick in every situation. I think we all, myself included, thought that they were going to have this. We knew they had this great car that worked great in high downforce, but we didn't believe they could make the car work on these high speed, high top speed tracks. And what we found was that they're not as quick in a straight line, but overall they've got a car that just performs and can crank out fast lap after fast lap. And that's all that they need. They don't need a car that does the fastest trap speed, or a car that's going to hold the highest speed through a high-speed corner, although they do have that. They just produce a car that's able to, it's like a Swiss Army knife. It does everything, and it does it all really well. And so congrats to Red Bull. I mean, nobody's been able to touch them this year. McLaren and Ferrari sometimes get in their hair a little bit, but it's really been great. And Sebastian Vettel, I mean, this was his 25th pole. He's just been amazing. So congrats to him. I think it's over. I mean, it's not mathematically over, but it's over. There's nothing really that can happen to him that would, keep him from winning the championship. But yeah, I loved it. It was a great race from beginning to end. Seeing them catch up with each other. There were some good points had by some other teams, in that Jaime Alguersuari was 7th, Di Resta 8th for Force India, Bruno Senna 9th for Renault, and Buemi for Toro Rosso. So both Toro Rossos in the top 10. Good news for them. The Williams cars struggled. They had struggled all weekend. They can't wait for Renault engines next year. I don't think it's a matter of engineering. I think it's powertrain. I think the Cosworth engine's just that far down on power that they suffer that badly. So it'll be interesting to see what they do next year with a Renault engine, because their fastest lap was only 7 tenths faster than the Lotus team. And we know the Lotus team doesn't have as good of engineering group as they'll have at Williams. So they just need a little bit more power, and I think they'll start challenging. I'm surprised the Force India wasn't faster. I mean, I know Satil retired, but I would have expected them to have been faster, to actually, to be ahead of Alguersuari and maybe even challenging the Ferrari team, but it didn't happen. But that was Monza. It was great. dominated by Sebastian Vettel, and Button picked up some good points. What I wanted to say, there's self-time? Maybe. The big race from here on out is who gets second place in the Drivers' Championship. There's only 14 points that separate places 2 through 5, so I think that's going to be an exciting race to see who's second. In that mix are, I'm doing it from memory, Alonso, Button, Webber, and Hamilton, not in that order, although I know Alonso is currently second. So, anyways, that's it from Monza. See you guys in Singapore in 2 weeks.